First of all, thank you everybody for coming here. Everybody come in the room okay? So, central question, I realize the description from the panel was on the schedule was a little bit. So central question is a concept that I've been playing around with, and there's other, I'm not going to talk about reinventing the wheel here. There's other writers that have written concepts similar to this. Essentially, so you've got your plot. Your plot is your set of events. You know, X happens, Y happens, Z happens. Story is the arc that the characters go through throughout the course of it. You know, the growth that they make or don't make. You know, whether or not it's comedy or tragedy. That's the story. The central question is a little bit deeper. So, for instance, The Matrix. I believe that their central question was something along the lines of, do we have free will or are things mostly determined? Lord of the Rings was another one where it's like, what is, you know, what does it take for us to overcome corruption? You know, or what do we have to do to overcome corruption? And if you look at it through that lens, Lord of the Rings could have been a much darker story, you know, the idea of corruption. So this overall kind of informs their other decisions. Another example that I use is Little Mermaid and Great Gatsby, which I don't think those two being hand in hand, but the central theme of the central question to me is, what do we risk in the pursuit of our dreams? So in Great Gatsby, I don't know if you all read it or saw the movie. All right, so in Great Gatsby, he's in love with this woman. He doesn't know how to win her over, she's with another guy, so he builds himself up to be this wealthy socialite, throwing these parties, hoping he'll eventually catch her attention. But because his whole journey was not about accomplishing things for himself, it was about getting this other person's attention, he is always going to be left empty without it. And so he is a tragic story because he falters, you know, he does not get what he wants, and he is ultimately unhappy, and it doesn't resolve well. Little Mermaid is very similar. She wants to be with his friends. She wants to be with him, and she gives up a piece of herself. And I feel like there's a lot of metaphors you can draw from this. Because I think it was important that when she makes the barter with Ursula, it's not just a token. It's not her favorite collection of China. It's not her favorite book. It is a piece of herself that she gives away to have a chance to get her dream. And I think you can draw some allegories from that on people that pursue stardom and the things they subject themselves to get to that level, or people that pursue business and the things that they potentially give up, or, you know, as their morality start to have throughout the course of that journey to gain wealth or fame or, you know, what have you, what are they willing to give up? And so, you know, overall, it is a concept that once you have it, once you've got that question, you can galvanize what the stories are all about. And it'll change a lot of your other questions, a lot of your other decisions. So as writers, I'm assuming a lot of you are writers in here, all right, you usually have an idea of who your main character is. But if you think about it, the story didn't have to be told in their point of view because of you, your background, your experiences, your beliefs, the things that you pour on the page. That's why it has to be that protagonist for this story. You look at Harry Potter, you know, you very easily could have told the entire story from Hermione Granger's point of view. You could have told the story from Luden's point of view, and now he's like infiltrating Hogwarts and trying to find out information about his friend's death. It could have been from Sirius Black's point of view, where he is trying to evade Azkaban and trying to learn things on his own and receiving everything from like a cloak and dagger point of view. Also, the setting that you pick is going to affect your central question. Your central question can affect your setting. So, for instance, it's an espionage story. You know, it's an espionage story, and your central question is something along the lines of like, who can you trust when the fate of a nation is at stake? Well, then all the relationships in that story are either tense. Is this person about to betray the main character? Is this person about to, who can that person trust? We don't know. Whereas like in an action adventure, Typically, the roles are much more concrete, they're a little more black and white all the time, but they can be. So these are things that I think are very important to explore throughout the course of your story. And once you decide on this, you can kind of, again, wrap everything else around it. Phase zero of the manga, what are acceptable losses? Um, you can also make decisions once you've got your central question of what are the things that I'm going to keep and what are the things that I'm going to get rid of, because that's another decision we have to make. You know, how many characters we keep, which characters we focus on, what scenes do we keep in the final draft. Because sometimes you might get all the way through your first draft and read back through it and go, oh, that's the story. And there's a lot of authors that have that experience. They can write the first draft and think the story's going one way and then organically just flows in a different direction. And you want to listen to that. You want to, have that play out in mind, but then be open to, oh, I need to change some things. There's this book series. I had to cut. It's a series, a trilogy is what I'm working on right now. But I had to cut 200 pages because I was as I wrote further and further, I was like, this part just doesn't make sense. It's not the story I'm telling anymore, and I had to be true to that. It can be difficult to let everything go in favor of the artistic vision. Sometimes you have to lock parts off and you don't want to. But I think that and there's screenwriters, Robert B. and a lot of other people argue as well that the story will be strong and forward. Because once you have a clear idea of why you're telling the story, not just who's doing what, why you're telling the story, your decisions are going to be a lot more clear throughout the course of it. I have another example in my mind. I just completely do you have any questions right now while we're at the stage? Or if anybody's got a story that they're working on, I do workshop in these seminars, so I help people kind of like walk through a story that they're working on and potentially find the central question for that. If not, I'll go back to my notes. Oh, dilemma. So, no, yes. A little shy, that's fine. The next part of it that I look at is what I call the dilemma. Now, a true dilemma is not just a problem. It's not just an obstacle. What dilemma means is that you have two choices and both of them are bad. So you have to choose between, like social choice, which daughter do I leave behind? Spider-Man, when he's got two cable cars and one has one is full of innocence, the other one is Gwen Stacy. So it's like, do I save the innocence or do I save the woman I love? Both options are terrible. And he's forced in a position where he has to make a no-win decision. But the decision he makes is a part of the story. It answers that question. The other aspect of it is what I call the central philosophy of the story. I should have like one of this. The philosophy, what you want to do with that is you want to have two opposing ideologies, but explore both of them. Because it gets very easy to be like, this is what I believe, I know this is wrong, and I'm gonna hammer that out, and it's gonna come across, it's gonna get a little thick, throughout the course of the story. And also, and don't get me wrong, I've definitely seen popular stories that the bad guy is very obviously the bad guy, and we're not supposed to root for them. But I think you can give yourself more layers to your story by giving yourself two very strong opposing arguments of, well, what if we did this, or what if we did this, and you have characters that believe both of those things, and then they go head to head throughout the course of that. The second Batman, Dark Knight, you have a lot of dueling philosophies in there. You have, Commissioner Gordon who believes in enacting justice by rules, mostly. You have Batman who works outside of the law. Then you have Harvey Dent that kind of works in between. He works within the rules, but he realizes he has to bend the rules someplace. Then that becomes a slippery slope for him. Then you have Joker. So you have Batman and his group, Harvey Dent, they believe, well, I think Joker and Commissioner Gordon believe most people are good. Joker does not believe that. He's trying to prove that premise throughout the course of the story. And you watch that philosophy battle throughout the course of that story, and that's why it's so engaging to listen to watch. And as it plays out, that scene where they're both in the boat, and you're like, who's going to pull the switch first? Joker's already decided who he thinks is going to do it, or he doesn't care. Whoever picks, he wins. But somebody like Batman has to believe they'll need one. And so that premise is challenged, that philosophy is kind of explored throughout the course of the story. But I don't think Christopher Nolan, he might have had an idea of which one he agreed with, but I think because he gave both options strong reinforcements, like when Joker's like, hey, kill this guy or I'm going to blow up the hospital, and people try to take that out, because he's like, we're all just this far away from completely down. And there's examples where he was right throughout the course of the story. So playing with that and exploring that in your story, central question, the original question, dilemma, the two opposing options that both are not great, that both are awful, and then three, the philosophy of having these two different, we'll say two right now, where they battle against each other, and you were kind of, as the audience, can kind of make your own decisions. Another great example was Endgame in Marvel Universe, where when Thanos does a finger snap and half the world's gone, but then pollution goes down, traffic goes down, the economy kind of straightens out, and you're like, oh, I didn't. Because I remember leaving the theater and hearing people say, wow, Thanos kind of had a point. And it's very dark, but it is because they explored that side of it. It wasn't that just that Thanos was this evil maniac. Like, he had a philosophy, he had a reason for doing what he did, and in his mind, he was making the universe a better place. Any questions?
So when you're talking about something like that, then do you go through and explore the implications of what their philosophy is?
Oh, I definitely think so.
Because with something like that, yes. There's a lot of people, a lot of eco people who think that something like COVID was an absolute positive good.
Yes.
Because it's the same reason it reduced the population and reduced energy usage. And there are other implications of that, some good, some that you can obviously agree are good, and some that you can obviously agree are evil, and some of them that are going to be ambiguous for many people.
Yes.
And so do you go through and investigate those kind of collisions?
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I definitely think you should. And explore it in a way that makes people uncomfortable. Makes you uncomfortable. Like, you write the scene and you say, ooh, I don't know where to post this, but I think when you make yourself uncomfortable like that, Quentin Tarantino is an example of this. He has talked about how he'll put scenarios from real life into his movies, and his friends will see the movie like, I can't believe you put that in there. He's like, that's the story, and that's art. I think as writers, we tend to gravitate towards the safe path. But I think the artists that you see that get the most attention, that made their mark, they tried things that were dangerous. They tried things that were edgy or that were taboo and pushed boundaries. And I think that you can do that in your writing. Game of Thrones is another example where you have these characters of very morally gray areas, and some lighter, some darker, and it gets really, really bad. Some of them, the other ones, and so there's a lot of villains, but there's a lot of gray area. You'll have a villain that might be, just kicking puppies and lighting fires throughout the whole story, and then randomly saves a child. And you realize there's more dimensions to that character than the audience realized at first.
But so, to make that interesting, you have to go back and examine what it is about their character that makes them make a good choice and the other choices that are obviously not good.
Right, but you want to be consistent. So that's the thing, whatever morality or philosophy you give to that character, just make those decisions consistent throughout. Because if the character starts doing things that don't make any sense, that you're like, that character wouldn't do that, it's going to ring false to your audience too. Was there anything?
No, that's right.
All right. Anybody else? Questions? Anything? Who's got a story that they're working on? Nobody? Full writers groups for a story. Do you have one you'd like to explore today?
Well, right now I'm doing fan fiction with Star Trek other group. It's a whole new ship, whole new series.
Okay.
And I published 2 on fan fiction. I've got a third I'm working on, and we'll probably publish within by the end of the year and get the third one up. I'm currently working on the 6th book. And of course, editing the others.
And that's fan fiction as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have the young adult dystopian series. The first book is about 70,000 words, and it is in its 6th edit. And every time I come to a conference like this, I learn something that I gotta go into now. And that's why I want to get as much learning as I can do, get it, and then send it to my editor, who I now have.
Excellent.
Ms. Osborne from Chrome Press.
Okay.
She's probably going to be my editor, I hope.
All right.
And we'll get that published. And I'm working in the 6th book of that series.
All right. So I'm glad you brought up Star Trek. Because Star Trek has a very interesting premise from the core of it, which is the prime directive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't interfere with pre-war society.
Right.
However, they keep running into very messed up scenarios where they're like, people are getting hurt. What do we do? You know, so it's like, do we go undercover? You know, and they work around it in different episodes. They go undercover. They don't let them know that they're spacefaring people. You know, but it's one of those. Do we turn a blind eye to atrocities to keep the prime directive? And that's something that they wrestle with over and over again.
And that's what I'm wrestling with in books 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because this ship is a fleet. Okay, it's got Worf as the ambassador aboard, Ganatra as the admiral in charge, and put a Klingon and a Romulan in the same ship.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then you've got Beck, which is a new creation, a new character, and he's staunch Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Chakotay from Voyager, and a Klingon captain.
On the original character.
And there's 4 ships. You got the Explorer, which is the main ship.
All right.
It's got deck or dock on the dorsal underneath. The Voyager and Pioneer, and underneath the SEC Galileo.
And then you have, so this is another, I'm glad you brought up the Romulans and the Klingons, because now you have different cultures.
Yeah.
So what's good and fair and noble to a Klingon is very different than what's good to a Romulan. Another way place I really like how they explored that was the conversations between Dr. Bashir, what's the Kardashian at the time he was facing? I don't remember his name. Oh. You know what I'm talking about, the Taylor?
Oh.
It wasn't DuPont. DuPont was the big bad. But him, they have these conversations, and the Kardashian is constantly like kind of twisting the philosophy of these different stories that we're talking about. Like he mentions the boy who cried wolf, and Dr. Bashir's like, the boy who cried wolf teaches you not to lie. And Taylor, who's called Taylor now, he says, no, the boy who cried wolf tells you not to tell the same lie twice.
Mm-hmm.
To a Kardashian, that's how it makes sense. You know, if you're in D&D, the Drow have a very different morality that a lot of other characters run into. Is there a kind of moral gray area or moral quandary that you're dealing with in one story about?
They have gone to the edge of the galaxy in Sector 1 of Alpha, and they're working their way back, exploring. And they, as soon as they arrive, everybody's knocked out by a scanning beam from the civilization that's there. And the civilization is advanced to the point where Q is, but they can't leave their solar system. They're locked into it. They're not as advanced as Q. And so they end up testing each one of the captains by putting them on a planet and giving them a scenario, either in the Prime Directive or in how humans deal with each other.
Yeah.
And they're all based on books. I'm using 20,000 Leagues to the Bottom of the Sea.
Okay.
There's another one.
Some high level literature there.
Yeah, all different books to base these worlds on
I love that.
and scenes that they've developed. It's quite intense.
No, that sounds fantastic. Hugh is another great character from the world quantity because to him, whatever entertains him at the moment is what he does. And Picard, why Picard's a great pointless, Picard is like, these are the rules. We have to follow these rules. And, watching those two butt heads where you have a Starfleet officer butting heads with an actual god, but a god with no morality. It's a fascinating story to watch play out. So I'd be curious to see how that plays out.
Hugh had taken these people to the point where they would be equal to him,
Okay.
and he stopped.
And trapped them there.
Trapped them there. They're left in this environment, this solar system,
Right.
and they're basically energy beings, but
There's another quandary with Q where it very much plays with the idea of the Q continuum and characters you're talking about that. To what extent is power not? If you can do anything, what do you do? Do you become a sadist? Do you become benevolent? And I think it depends on the person, but you explore that concept of like what does power do to a person. That's why you have you've got Superman, who we're all familiar with, where he's got godlike power, but he's a Boy Scout. But then in recent years, we've seen Homelander from The Boys, where we see, okay, that's another way somebody with Superman's power could play out. Omni-Man, there's even Injustice, which is Superman going evil, turning dark, becoming authoritarian, becoming a dictator, essentially. And it's, what are the different paths we can take? And sometimes it's about what's inside of us, what our character is. In Injustice, it's circumstance. Superman's fine until he loses Lois. And once Lois is murdered and it's something he could have stopped, he loses. And then it becomes this slippery slope of him continuously making decisions of, well, should I do this, should I do this, should I do this? And you watch it play out throughout the course of comics, and he keeps kind of taking the darker path, but in his mind, he keeps getting forced into that darker path. And that's where I feel like the writing is good, because it's not just, he doesn't just like, one bad thing happens and he's twirling his mustache and just setting buildings on fire. It's a steady progression into darkness for Superman. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out in your story. Does anybody else have anything that they're working on right now? Yes.
I was wanting to ask, when you have a premise where you're thinking about how to culture the reality at the level, how do you put that into people? Like, if you're
well, I mean, we've got a lot of that in history of being here. Sure. We've seen it play out time and again in history. Wars, crusades, colonialism, revolutions, where different ideologies put together. And so one is going to be, which character you follow. Are you following characters from both sides or both cultures that are kind of mashed together? Are you just focusing on characters from one side of the conflict and then maybe they run into the other culture and you're like, oh, you're not who I thought, And so that's where the central question comes from. You want to kind of distill down to what is the question I'm answering. And it might not be a clear answer, but so if the question is, so in war it's very easy to dehumanize the enemy, all right? So in war, one question would be, do we need to dehumanize the enemy to be effective in war? And then you examine that from both sides. Another example is, can you continue fighting a war once you understand the other side? So then it's the characters from this side, but they keep meeting these people that aren't the bad guys they've been told they were. And as they meet these people and have these conversations and learn more about that culture, they're like, oh, you shouldn't be fighting at all. And so there's different ways you can explore that. So it's the central question you want to answer. And so I would dig into that, whether it's characters, setting. I tend to, so I know some people start with characters, some people start with plot. I tend to start with setting, which I know is a little odd. Like I have a place in mind, and then I start figuring out who to populate it there. But, we're each coming at it from a different vantage point. So what question you ask yourself will be how that works. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, you have to say, you figure out the conflict, and you figure out the best characters.
Yes. Because, yeah, and that's another thing. The conflict, the way we want to tell the story of conflict will change which characters you follow. I mean, Lord of the Rings, he's a good of all era, but Tolkien wanted to tell the story of small people overcoming great obstacles. That's not Aragorn. That's Frodo. So because he picked Frodo, it's a very different story than if it had been Aragorn.
This is very difficult to figure out sometimes.
It is, but it's worth the effort. Yeah. So one of the exercises I usually suggest for people is write 5 questions. Just come up with 5 different questions, and each time, if you can, dig a little bit deeper, like we were talking about a moment ago. Go to those uncomfortable places. Go to those places where you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to answer this question. And that's when you have that moment, you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I say dive in, because then you're going to get more answers. If you dive into that uncomfortable area, you don't even have to publish the things you write, that stuff right there. But you dive into that uncomfortable space, and you start learning more about yourself, about the story, about the type of questions and philosophies you want to explore throughout the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
I guess I was still back on the trying to get that down to the characters.
Okay. So what is that? Sure. What is at stake for them? Okay. What do they stand to lose if they don't achieve their objective? Right. Stakes are very important. And then a lot of newer writers, when they hear the concept stakes, they think make the conflict bigger. My advice is make the conflict more personal. All right. So if there's a war and it's, oh no, the whole world is going to be destroyed if I don't do X. The world is kind of an amorphous concept. The idea of everybody dying at once, that's kind of too big to think about. However, if they've got to do this stuff and their child is on the other side of the city and there's tanks and guns and everything else, and they have to save their child or their lover or their father, that's a lot more personal. So I'm using that as an example. It might be, there's this book that they want to get the last piece to. It might be, if it's what you said, was it a war? What is the context?
The conflict doesn't go into war, but so I was kind of thinking about Tolkien and visual fantasy and honor. I want to have a monarchistic culture and a meritocratic culture that has some hallmarks of character. I kind of want to explore the one side of the culture is like, okay, people who seek power and get it are bad. They become corrupt by seeking power. Okay. And the other side is like, when I'm not earning power.
Okay.
And then you have the conflict, and then you get to see. Then it comes to a new society that has a mixture of both. I kind of want to do that because I've been comfortable with monarchy in certain environments. Okay. People in the past. Or, well, not environment to speak, but monarchy, authoritarian environment is how you get the thought process. Where people are daydream about all powerful government and enforce good rules that everyone does.
So
I really didn't need to go into all this. No way do I'm referring to the environment. I love the environment.
no problem. That's fine. But here, you're getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing because you're delving into a place like, ooh, this is some uncharted territory for me. I don't feel completely comfortable writing this. And that's where magic's going to happen. So are you familiar with Animal Farm? Everybody's read that Animal Farm? All right, we overthrow the original power structure, then we become It's like, okay, we overthrew the monarchy, now what? How do we make sure we don't do the same bad things they did? Another option, it occurred to me while I was talking, is have two main characters. Somebody that either is the authoritarian or works in their sphere, and they're watching power be abused, but have somebody else that wants to do all these good things, but doesn't have power to make that change. And so you start exploring, is power necessary to get things done? And you start exploring that concept, and that can be a lot of fun because now that character that is like, I want to make the world a better place. I have to get power to do that. What am I willing to do to get that power? What are the things I'm willing to trade away to get that power? Like in Greek asking for learning, what are pieces of myself that I'm sacrificing to make the world a better place? And at what point does that become a darker scenario? Do they achieve it? Do they not? And that's something that's a dilemma. Maybe they're put in this position where it's like, okay, my friends are trapped over here, and I need to do this to rescue them. Or if I do this action, I get power that I couldn't get from saving my friends, and I can make the world a better place. And that brings you into those uncomfortable areas. You're like, ooh, man, there's not a good solution here. But when you explore that, it's going to take you to some violence.
Make the characters representations.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did you had a question?
Yes. In my story, I'm kind of having a difficult time determining who is the big bad, because my character, I think her main problem is that she's having trouble finding allies, and everyone that she's trying to turn to get help is pushing her away, so she keeps thinking like, oh, the humans will help me if they don't. Like, she eventually, she's actually a key ally. She does make friends with, like the outcasts of society, because she needed medical care, and major cities, it's like those fucking to turn her away because of her condition. But the people who are hunting her down, because she was part of the facility, found one, so she doesn't know where to turn to. And she eventually turns to everyone's common enemy, so there's a war going on, and they take her in. But I don't know if it's effective for everyone to be her enemy, pretty much. It's like a man versus a friend type deal.
Right. So that's where the question comes into play. What is that central question you're asking? And so the central question is, how do we survive a world? How do we survive a house? We'll just use that as an example. Then, yeah, the environment itself is her enemy, and the people are a representation of that. Their callousness of like, you know what, you've got your problems, I've got my own problems, I can't deal with it, go away. And so it's not necessarily essentially bad, it's her running into this over and over again, but the people that she meets along the way that do help, and then she in turn finds ways to help them, then that becomes that, yeah, you know what, in a callous world, we don't have to become callous as well. One example, if you want there to be a big bad, then you are going to want to structure your central question in that direction. So another example we could use is there's a three-way war, post-apocalyptic world, resources are scarce, it sounds like, and this woman has a health condition.
Yeah.
What is the health condition?
It's kind of like tetanus, but it's really slow.
Okay, so she's going to get like her body and stuff over time, or just
Yeah,
stuff
like
like that.
her arteries are stiffening.
Ooh, that's good. That's
She's like online, basically, rust virus,
okay.
artificial legs going on. So she can walk around forever and not get tired. Because how she traverses everywhere.
But she's going to die.
Yeah.
If she doesn't get help.
Yeah.
All right, so that's another tactic in writing that they call tipping point. All right, that this thing is going to happen at this time unless we accomplish one. Bomb's going to blow up. This is going to happen. She's going to die. So now she's fighting against her own mortality. Maybe there is a place. Maybe there's a doctor that has that cure, but there's all this stuff she's got to get through to get to that doctor. And when she gets to that doctor, she finds out that that doctor is selling that cure astronomical. You know, people are having to like sell off body parts or, you know, give up their home. He's just reveling in it. And she's like, I thought you were a good person. And now I come here and you're just benefiting off of human misery. And so, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pontificate here, but it's the central question that you ask that's going to decide who the enemy is. Does that make sense? Do you have a few ideas of the enemy already, or?
She's fighting against, like, she's being hunted down. She's, like, her only successful climb in her boyfriend, or she thinks she is. She eventually realized she's being hunted down by one of her sisters, another successful clone, trying to get her back.
Why do they want her back?
Because she's the closest to, like, their mother in terms of, like, intelligence and they're trying
So they want her to be back in their family.
Yeah.
Unit. Okay. Okay. Well, and then there's another question. There's another philosophy you can explore is the needs of others. Do the needs of others outweigh our own? You know, or how much of ourself do we lose in trying to help other people? Another option would be, you know, I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase this, but the toxicity of family. That sometimes our families put things upon us that are not, they think it's for our best interest, but we don't see that. And then that becomes, you know, so the question at that point could be, what are acceptable boundaries with our family? You know, or at what point does obeying our family hurt us as a person? You know, in which case now the family is the enemy. They're the bad guy. And that sounds like the direction that story is going. If it's a ticking clock, she's got to get saved by this time, and that person's chasing her. To me, that sounds like I'm giving an example, comparison here of a movie The Fugitive. You know, where Harrison Ford is on the run and Tommy Lee Jones is the antagonist. Now, he's not necessarily a bad person; he's just doing his job. But this one, you can make it a lot more visceral, you know, a lot more emotional between these people know each other. They grew up together, and your antagonist is like, look, if I go back with you, I'm going to die. And maybe the sister is like, better to die with us than out here by yourself. You know, come back home.
She's not like a person in her eyes.
Oh.
Kind of stepping stone. She didn't even know that there was another successful clone separated. It's like an early experiment. But she thinks that they're trying to rebuild humanity pretty much. So they got like halfway wiped. But she thinks that there's a better way to go about it. She doesn't want to go back to them because she thinks it's dead. But she also has to save herself, and she allies herself with these aliens that want to part of the life.
Okay.
They're like biomechanical.
All right.
So she thinks that they have a better solution for her problems and Henry's problems than my son, honestly.
Yeah.
So she thinks that they have the answer, and because she keeps getting turned down by all the humans and such,
Right.
she's like, you are my last hope. I can give you whatever you need. My body can experiment on me.
But are they nice people?
They're the only people who
All right, but do they have an opportunity? There you go. So that's the
it's like a lesser.
yes. And there's another one is, you know, when we are faced with evil at every turn, what is the best choice? You know, that's the dilemma that we talked about earlier, where she's got these numerous options. All of them are terrible. But she's got to pick the one that makes the most sense for her. So that is going to go into her personal journey. I'm glad you brought this up because now we can talk about that. So I talked about plot. So plot is your series of events. Plot is I got the ring. I got chased by the ring roots. I go here, I go here, I go here. I throw the ring out. That's the plot. And the story is the arc the character goes through. So I think what will help you decide on that would be what does your character need to learn in the story. And once you answer that, I think everything else is going to work. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Perfect. Anybody else? This is fun. How are we on time?
Pretty good. 4:41.
Just got another like 19 minutes. Do we go to the bell or do we stop like 5 minutes early? So
5 minutes early is usually better to get time to get to the next place, not to let the next person set up.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay, so like 10-ish minutes. Does anybody else have anything that they're working on or that, or maybe it's just a question you've got about how this works.
How do you have no idea what your question is? You've already written the story and you have no idea.
So read it. Sit back, read your story, try to look at it with fresh eyes if you can. I know that's difficult when you're on like the aged ahead. But you want to take a step back, you want to read it, and you want to see what did you miss the first time. You know, what did you just notice, or what's something that kind of jumps out at you as you're reading it, and you're like, oh, I can do something with this. There's something fun or dangerous or different that I can play around with in this. And if you don't find it, I mean, you don't find it, but I think that there is always there, and that it's not just me, there are numerous Friday professors that argue this. It's always there, but sometimes you just have to dig a little bit deeper below the surface. So like I was talking with him, maybe write out 5 different options, and maybe as you're reading through those 5 options, you're like, no, and then the 6th one pops in your head. And you're like, oh, I haven't thought of that before. So what's the story?
Okay, well, real quick background. The entire reason my story exists is because my wife had me read Carrie Goodkind because she loves Sword of Truth. Okay, and I read all 11 books, and when I got done with the series, she asked me my opinion, and I told her that I hated it. And she said, oh, well, you think you could do better? And I said, I could do better in my sleep. And she said,
so the gauntlet is from. All right.
So now I've written 3 books. I wrote a trilogy. It's roughly 1,300 pages between all 3 books.
Okay.
And the story is an old wizard who was banished from his world to Earth. And Earth was created as a non-magical place to send people who hate magic. And
Like prisoners.
well, just basically, look, y'all want to live your life, go live your life here. The magic people are here, y'all go over there.
Okay. All right.
Well, the magic, the guy who's in charge of magic, who's left on his world, decides that he's really mad that this wizard was sent there just as a punishment, and he sends people there to bring him back so that they can kill him. And when he gets dragged back, he finds out he's in the middle of a war. The entire continent is erupted into
On
one
Earth or in the magical world?
on the magical world.
Okay.
Elves, orcs, vampires, werewolves, everybody's fighting.
Okay.
And
what's his thing?
well, he really just wanted to be left alone, but now that he's here, he's just trying to keep his grandson alive.
Okay. So the grandson, that's the stakes. Somebody he cares about, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Or maybe he didn't realize how much he cared about him until grandson was in danger. I would say an example would be, what is the price of indifference? So maybe throughout the story, he let a bunch of bad things happen because he's like, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to get involved in this. But he's had the power the whole time to do something about it. And as he's watched it happen, maybe those things led directly to the grandson being in danger. And now he's like, I've got to act. And now he's saying all this other stuff that, like, oh, I couldn't stop this.
Part of the war is directly attributable to his actions from before he got finished.
Or another one is, what are the consequences of our actions? Or if you want to dig a little deeper, how do we redeem ourselves from the consequences of our actions? And that's where it starts getting really interesting, because it's like, okay, are there things that are redeemable? Are there things that we can come back? So there's a saying by Neil Gaiman that your second draft is pretend like you knew what you were doing all along. And so when you find your central question and you go back and make changes, you don't have to rewrite the entire book, but you can start sprinkling breadcrumbs earlier on. You're like, okay, I need to change this. And sometimes I'll use like a spreadsheet, I'll be like, okay, here are my beats, here are all my moments, or here are my beats and my moments, my movements throughout the course of the story. And you're like, okay, so this, I've already written it. And I know how frustrating it is to have to change stuff, but the story will be stronger. So once you decide what your central question is, just go back and make changes throughout the story like you do that whole time. And you might have to rewrite certain chapters, but sometimes you can do it in a way you don't have to change everything. You might decide, I'm going to start from scratch. I wouldn't put that on anybody because I wouldn't want to have to do that myself. But I've done some pretty serious rewriting. So I would say, dig in, find out what that central question is. So we've got a couple of examples there. There was the price of responsibility, the price of, the consequences of our actions. Can we redeem ourselves from those consequences? And if those don't work, just keep writing. Just keep writing questions and look at them and be like, okay, which one puts the main character in the most uncomfortable position? There's a saying in writing that you want to put your protagonist in a tree, set the tree on fire, and then start burning blocks. You want to make things as difficult as possible for your character because if your character doesn't overcome anything, there's not a lot of suspense to the audience. So if you find that your character has been kind of breezing through the story and like, I don't need to worry about this, I'm good, they're just kind of going through the challenges very easily, up the difficulty level, have him lose, have him get setbacks throughout the course of the story, especially when he's trying to do the good things now, especially when he makes that concerted effort to try to redeem himself. Now everything's going on. Does that help? Perfect. Anybody else? When we get close to time, you got one. Sure.
So I've been fascinated by the thought that I can hike through a forest and never see a deer. But at sunset, there's deer everywhere. Right. So where are the deer when during the day? So I transposed the deer into a mythical creature who is in a world that has rules or boundaries of why that they can't cross out. Okay. And then on the other hand, a person who's lost in the wilderness and is trying to find their way to civilization, and somehow these two worlds collide. All right. And so I'm struggling with then, like, who am I following? Am I following the person lost in the wilderness who uses the mythical creature to resolve their conflict, or is it the mythical creature who is trying to stay in the boundary but is curious about the new world that wants to explore? And is that what are we following both? Or what those two different philosophies, to your point,
Sure.
that are in common?
Right. And you could do that. So a couple examples there. It is from the point of view of the supernatural creature, and you want to kind of do a spin on the cosmic morality tale of what are the dangers of going beyond our boundaries. So maybe one of the creatures goes out and something bad happens to them, or they get hurt, or they get stuck in a place that's like a magic neutral zone, and like they can't go back. And now exactly. The door slams shut behind them. Like, I didn't know that could happen. And it's like, that's why the elders told you not to do it. And you're like, shoot. And now that other guy that's coming in, he suddenly becomes that character's only lifeline to get back home. That character could have their own set of problems. And so you want that set of problems to be thematically relevant to each other. So they would be the same problem. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so that they could together, they would be able to solve the...
Right. They are two halves of a whole, and they need each other to be complete. And we've seen that story many times. Speaking of Star Trek, when the walls fell, with that episode where he's Picard's put on the planet with that guy that doesn't speak his language, they speak in metaphor or story.
I've got Darmok and Talana.
Yeah.
I've got that shirt. To me, that's like human communication.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. But that's the thing, they're put into this dangerous situation, and have to work together to survive. They can't communicate. Because Picard doesn't understand what he's saying, and vice versa. So, this is where theme comes into. In that theme, that story, it was communication. In your theme, it could be trust. It could be personal accountability. It could be a story of becoming, where each character, like the boy maybe came out into the woods because like, this is how I'm going to prove to be a man. I'm going to kill a deer. I'm going to capture one of these people. There you go.
Yeah. So coming of age.
Coming of age for him. It's coming of age for both of them, but from different angles. And so he goes out into the woods thinking, I'm going to capture one of these guys. And he finds them and is like, oh no, you need to come back with me. He's like, no, I can't go back with you. I need to go back home. And maybe they end up in a bad situation where some other threat is against them. They work together, and then after that, away from the human world, it's like, I can't just keep you home as a trophy now. Like, you saved my life. Now I need to help you. So the struggles that they're having they shouldn't be the same, but they should be able to mirror each other. And then once you've got that, once you've got what each one of them are wrestling with, that's going to inform what your central question is and what your goals. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Thank you all. How are we on our offer? We close?
Yeah, I think that's.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Oh,
Resources.
all right. 4 minutes left. Gotcha. All right.
Resources, just anything about yourself.
So I'm online, GideonHodge.com. I've got a channel, Grayscape Storytime. I can be found at Gideon on Instagram, Gideon Hodge and Nicholas Baxter on Facebook. So yeah, if you want to hit me up, shoot me a message. I do consulting sometimes too, so if you want to just have me help out with that, feel free to hit me up. Or I can also put you on the email list. And I do have an email list here. Go ahead and put yours on there, and I can go ahead and shoot you an email and give you some info. We can start a conversation. Get you a pen. Also, if anybody else wants to be on the mailing list, these are just books that I've got. They are for sale out your vendors, but also just to show you that these are things that I've written.
I once had somebody tell me their email address, they're like,